You want to learn the build order on how to rush down your opponent with towers in competitive Age of Empires 2 multiplayer? Well then keep watching, because I'll not only show you the build order but also how to best place and defend your towers and which civilizations to pick for it. And if this is the first video in the series for you, I need to tell you, we'll do it all in less than 10 minutes. So let's fire this up. So here we are on Arabia, the standard land map, and definitely a good choice for a tower rush given that resources are pretty exposed, including the golds, berries and woodlines. You know the drill, you'll find the build order chart down at the bottom, and let's get going. The starting villagers, as always, will build a couple of houses to kill the time until we get the first sheep under the TC, and we send the other sheep as well as the scout out to find our additional resources. The first 3 villagers out of the TC will also go on food. Remember, we need 6 villagers on food for steady villager production. As for the rest of the build order, you'll notice once again that it's almost identical to my fast feudal build, with the only difference being that we're going to have 3 on wood instead of 2, since we want to include a barracks and militia into our build order. And this brings me to a critical point of this video already.
Alright everyone, listen up!
Many build orders for fast feudal towers will be a naked tower rush, and no, this does not mean playing Age of Empires 2 without any clothes on, but it means you're sending vills and building the towers without any support units. The problem is that a tower rush is already a very vulnerable strategy, and towers actually get killed fairly easily by enemy villagers, so without any support units, it's really easy for your opponent to defend, and that's why this build order will include 3 militia to protect both our villages and the towers. Now, as I mentioned, the next 3 villages go to the closest wood line. Remember to place your lumber camp bang on the trees without any gap. The civilization we're playing here, by the way, are the Bulgarians. If you've watched any of my other build videos, you know that I usually pick a civ that doesn't impact the build order at hand, to demonstrate that you can literally do it with any civ. As for the case of a tower rush though, I will argue there's really no point to play it with a generic civilization, since it's already a risky play to make and you'll need some sort of advantage to make it work. For Bulgarians in particular, it's that their militia upgrade to men-at-arms for free and automatically once you hit feudal age, so nothing impacting the towers themselves but the supporting units. Let's briefly take a look at other strong civilizations to do a tower rush with. The classics here are the Koreans, where their villagers get +3 line of sight, which helps with the tower placements. The stone miners work 20% faster, and tower upgrades are free, so if your towers survive into castle age, that is pretty juicy. Byzantines are another good choice here, by the way. Their buildings have +20% HP in feudal, and town watch is free. Incas also make the list. Their buildings cost 15% less stone, and finally Teutons, where you can garrison more than 5 villages. You've seen it here on screen. We've sent the next villager to build a house near the forward boar and will then lure the boar. The next few villagers will go again on to hunt under the TC. On the topic of deer luring, you realistically will only have time to lure 1 or 2 deer. After that, your scout has to have brought in your other sheep and needs to go and scout your opponent's base. You know this from a drush already, but a tower rush is even more critical on this point, because you don't only want to know where your opponent is, but also where their key resources are, so you know what to target. With towers, you will usually either target their berries, main gold, or woodlines. So it's important to have your choice ready when you send your vills forward, and that's only possible if you've sent your scout over early, and of course, you don't want to lose it. As for most build orders, I think it's important that it works with minor imperfections as well. In this demonstration, the rotting of my hunt is definitely one of them. Doing that just for you. We bring in the second boar before the barracks here, and then add 1 more villager onto food, and you can see it here already, my scout is now heading towards the opponent base. Villager number 16 will now go and build the barracks. Strike the balance here between building it nice and close to the TC and making it part of your house wall. On an ideal map with a forward main gold, you build your barracks right next to that and use the building villager to then collect 10 gold on its way back. That's because after researching Loom, we only have 50 gold, but we need 60 for 3 militia. Here the map isn't ideal for that, so we just take one of the food villagers to get the 10 gold in a second and have the barracks villager return to hunt. You already saw it, we also took one of our lumberjacks to build a house, and all following vills will go on to hunt until we have 20 villagers in total, not 20 pop, but 20 villagers. As for Loom, I would do it right before clicking up here, since your villagers are a bit exposed as they travel across the map to build the towers, and they also might get attacked the second they start building the first tower. Also, this means you have the peace of mind of having enough food to click up smoothly. Quickly looking at the barracks, it's important to only queue up 2 militia and wait for the third one until you've made sure you can click up after Loom and you're not delaying your uptime because of the third unit. Meanwhile, you can see on the minimap we're getting a pretty good picture of our opponent's base already, and it looks like there are 2 forward woodlines which might make a good target. And we're about to click up now, and that means the great rebalancing is about to commence. What we'll have to do here is address the lack of wood, stone, and running out of hunt. On the hunt, you should ideally finish the hunt first and then go on to the mill, especially if you have a lot of rotting like I do here, so do as I say and not as I do. For the purpose of this demonstration though, it doesn't really change anything, so we'll keep going. We send 7 vills onto berries, or ideally 4 to 5, and keep finishing the hunt first. And we send 4 vills to wood, to have 6 in total, and we send 3 vills to stone, and the remaining 4 villagers start going forward in a second. A quick word on how many we put on stone here. A tower rush can end after 1 tower, or you'll get to multiple towers, so by sending too many villagers onto stone, you will sometimes risk delaying your castle age uptime for nothing, because you don't end up building those towers, and then you're just banking stone. That's why I often start with just 1 or 2 villagers on stone, also because Bulgarian TCs are cheaper, so I don't need to recoup as much stone anyway. If I realize my tower rush will likely keep going, I then add more villagers to stone. You'll see that pretty quickly from the reaction of your opponent. But to make sure you can do this with other civilizations as well, and you'll have the stone to build TCs, just put 3 on stone here. On the amount of villagers you're sending forward. Sending any more vills forward than 4 in this case will usually hurt your economy and your follow-up too much, so I find 4 to be a pretty good balance. In this case, I even cause a bit of idle time when I build my tower here in a sec, since I'm placing it into the woodline nuke. Nuke? Nuke! Arena players. Anyway, so that's the rebalancing done, and now comes the fun bit. We have to decide where to put our towers. As mentioned already, the choices broadly are gold, berries, and woodlines. I personally like how vulnerable the woodlines are on this map, so we'll try and cut those off. Broadly speaking, you can place your towers in one of 2 ways. Number 1 is you place it as a standalone onto a woodline or other hard resource, protect it to as many sides as possible by those resources, and then you palisade the additional open sides. Or you place your towers within reach of each other so that they protect each other. Even in this case, obviously you wall them in with palisades. In the demo here you can see that we're opting for the woodline, because once we have towered both woodlines, our opponent will have a really hard time to get to wood, and we force them to use the market or their straggler trees. Note here that the job of the men-at-arms is by no means to go and hunt down villagers, but it's just to protect your tower and your villagers. If they weren't there, your opponent would simply send forward 10 villagers onto your first tower, and that's that. Back at home, by the way, build out your economy by sending villagers onto the woodline and stragglers while adding farms whenever you can. You can also see here how the tower spot is perfect, but it does mean that not all villagers have access to building it at the same time. If that happens, ideally just use your other villagers to build a house or do something else useful and not look like this. Once we have placed this tower and the next one onto the second woodline and walled both of them in, we have a decision to make, and that is whether we want to push up a third tower onto a nearby gold or something else, or focus on our uptime. I personally think in this case the 2 woodline towers will do enough damage, and one of them is even in the reach of the berries. So the marginal reward of placing a third tower doesn't really justify it, and we should rather stop going on stone and focus on our uptime. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we'll go ahead with a third one here in a minute as well. While we watch the next towers go up, let's talk about how to defend against the tower rush so we can decide on the next steps against the attacker. Broadly, your opponent will do one of 5 things. Number 1 is fight with villagers, since they probably don't have any units yet. Number 2 is to place a counter tower. Number 3 is to solely focus on castle age, which is quite risky. Number 4 is to prevent follow-up towers with feudal age units such as scouts or archers. And number 5 is to simply counter-attack your base and try to get to castle age. Broadly speaking, no matter what they do, the basic truth is the first guy to get to castle age wins the game. And that's because knights or siege easily take down towers, especially feudal age towers, and your economy at home. And if you don't believe me, believe the man who coined the phrase.
Usually the first guy to hit castle age is the guy who wins the game.
That's right, there you go. As for your follow-up from here, once you've placed your towers, you will quickly see what your opponent does as a reaction. If they're going full on feudal age units, make sure you build some counters to that at home, but otherwise just focus on getting to castle age as fast as you can, rather than adding units proactively in feudal age. It's also a good idea to wall up, particularly once you've seen that your opponent is going for units. And that's it, the tower rush in less than 10 minutes. As always, play whack-a-mole with all these positive buttons down there, like, subscribe, comment, bell, I don't know what. And let me know down in the comments if you've enjoyed the video or what you would do differently. Until next time.